Hello, my name is Andy Corrigan. I'm the Digital Library Coordinator at Cambridge University Library and an Associate of Cambridge Digital Humanities. In this short film, we're hopefully going to give you a flavour of our Walking with Constable project. Walking with Constable is a collaborative project between Cambridge Digital Humanities, the Fitzwilliam Museum, and Cambridge University Library. The project uses digital technologies to take prints locked in a museum back into the landscape which made them. We undertake walks in the landscape the Constable sketched, documenting them to produce a form of public writing. Walking with Constable enables a form of slow looking, very different from a typical gallery experience. Participants help us to explore how to document a shared experience of viewing, engaging with Constable's prints outside of the museum. Our walks might highlight change and development of the landscape and foreground issues of industrialisation present in Constable's work. It might change the forms or modes of attention awarded to the prints, from looking at to walking with. It asks us how we can rethink the relationship of the work to the land. Finally, how can we bring in various different kinds of expertise based on knowing the place, knowing the work, or even bringing a completely different perspective to inform our slow viewing. Underpinning our inquiry are a series of more general questions. How and in what ways can we use digital technologies to engage with publics in ways that root around standard virtual gallery or museum formats? How and in what ways can we document these engagements in compelling and accessible ways? How can we build on this project to inaugurate new forms of engagement with publics around other works and perhaps on a larger scale? To get us in the mindset, Caroline Bassett, Professor of Digital Humanities at the University of Cambridge, will introduce some of the methodologies and theories behind the project.
My interest was really in thinking about ways to use digital technologies differently to enable a different kind of engagement with the kinds of work that Constable produced. And what I mean by that is that very often the whole process of digitization does open up a way of seeing or engaging with objects that are often hidden away, but they do so by distancing the gaze, if you like. We understand the fantastic capabilities of digital technologies to add to the infrastructure. We understand that infrastructure and architecture is important. We understand the interest in archiving, re-archiving, and using metadata and using technologies like IIIF to link works together in new ways. But we really wanted to think about the other end. The Constable project was different. We used very low-tech digital technologies to take Constable for a walk in the landscape that he himself was inspired by. So the principles behind the project were to think about ways to enable a slow, meditative, moving engagement, and to think about how the land, the work, and the process of making sense of the work could be enabled in new ways by using digital techniques to let us see Constable's landscape, to see his engravings, and to be walking through that landscape at the same time. So thinking about the notion of walking with Constable, we were inspired by a lot of different forms of theory as well as other expertises. But one of the theorists that seemed very relevant to thinking about what we were doing was Michel de Certeau, who talked about walking as a kind of sense-making and a kind of place-making. Michel de Certeau thought about the difference between what he called the scopic view, or the very distant view from above, and the embedded view of the user, of the city or the place. And he talked about the very different kind of sense you could make of a place if you walked through it and if you were embodied as part of it. So in the Constable project, we were really interested in taking the Constable prints out of the museum in order to go for a walk with them and to understand them phenomenologically. Could we use both distant reading, if you like, and a kind of close-up embodied sense of engagement and put those together to begin to create a whole new set of resources and ways of experiencing Constable? For de Certeau, you trace out a pathway through a city, and that's also to trace out your experience of it. And I think to walk with Constable is to find your own way through his engagement with the landscape. But there's another way to think about technology as enabling a new kind of vision, of fragments assembled under a new law. That's Walter Benjamin. And that sense of fragments reassembled under a new law, or a different way of seeing, if you like, was something that helped us design the project in a way that began with the techniques to enable walking with Constable, but also to add in other elements, to think about other walkers or other theorists, and to think about aerial photography and how we could bring together different components. I think it's interesting that Constable was already working with Lucas to produce the mezzo tints. So Constable himself was already interested in finding a different way to let people experience his work, which involved technical mediation. So what we were doing was actually bringing a layer of technology in to remediate the works in another way that fits the 21st century.
So I'm here with Eleanor Ling, my colleague on the project, in the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge.
The works we chose to take from the Fitzwilliam Museum's collection outside and into the landscape were mezzotints. These are images printed onto paper from metal matrices, in particular, in this case, steel plates. And we used the collection's prints rather than drawings or oils by Constable for three main reasons. The first is that prints are original multiples that are the same impressions of these works we selected in every major and many minor institutions worldwide, which means that whatever we do here has the potential to be impactful in a much wider environment. The second reason was that the prints are part of a book known as The English Landscape, which was first published 1832, again in 1833, designed by Constable with the printmaker David Lucas, for which Constable started to compose text. He fretted that no one would be able to read his images, and the texts are incredibly rich and interdisciplinary in context, comprising meanderings on history, cloud formations, birdsong and poetry and more. And we wanted to make best use of our place within Cambridge University to investigate the prints and written material. And the third reason was that a great many of the views in the prints are quite local. 16 of the 22 plates in Constable's English Landscape are of the localities in East Anglia, a short journey from Cambridge. What you're seeing on the slides is evidence of walks we undertook in summer 2022 and 2023. They were all distances which we could cover comfortably in the space of a day, which would begin, pass through or end with one of Constable's sites depicted in the English Landscape publication in the Dedham Vale on the Suffolk-Essex border. Our aim was to bring a mix of overlapping expertise on the walks, academics from the university mixed with land management expertise from the National Trust, landscape artists who see the world in very particular ways, but also, crucially, non-traditional expertise in the form of walking groups and experts in the local area who know and love the localities as Constable did. On each walk we took iPads loaded with images of the sites, which could be activated on screen by a QR code printed on paper. We looked through the transparent images on screen into the actual landscape beyond. We brought recording field equipment and recorded the sights and sounds and the conversations that happened during the walk, prompted by the images we looked at and the places we passed and the things we saw. Each walk produced and is producing blog entries on a variety of complementary topics, from Constable himself to the history of the land, to science and skies, personal experiences from our childhoods, walking and well-being, and recording in black and white. Using the images in this way as a starting point, we think, goes some way to demonstrate how rich the project can be.
The brief was to prototype a way to take some images for a walk instead of looking at them in a museum. We're surrounded by technology these days, and our digital worlds create an illusion that off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box plug-and-play solutions are the fast, free and easy answer to everything. But by taking a heuristic approach to what might be achievable with the available resources, time frame, skills and willing participation, the results have been much more than a successful prototype. Nothing we did was particularly complicated, and technically speaking, it's been a very modest digital project. We had a couple of iPads, an audio recorder, our own phones, and, by the second walk, because as it turns out, digital devices can't do everything at once, a physical OS map. But, in much the same way as a physical walk has obstacles to navigate, so too does the digital path. Unexpected or surprising challenges require out-of-the-box thinking, rather than out-of-the-box solutions. For example, connectivity, a strong emerging theme in this project, in practical and technological terms, meant we didn't even know if there would be any signal or reception out in the landscape. So it's not often these days that we start a digital concept with the uncertainty of an internet connection. Another parallel with the physical world is one of access. fences, gates and locks. Making an iPad believe it was securely connected to the internet enough to let a web browser access its camera was, perhaps surprisingly, one of the most complex aspects that requires a rebellious and deceptive approach. Even though our goal was to prototype something, the results of this project are already embedding themselves and going real places. The content is available not only via the project website, but is incorporated into Cambridge Digital Library, and the network of people it has created has opened many two-way doors. We have begun to situate Constable's work in a place where we can begin to understand it within a new digital landscape. For example, we can collide art and science by putting Constable's passion for rainbows right next to Isaac Newton's notes on colour and light, or the observations and journals of historical ecologist Oliver Rackham. Initially, we felt we'd need a few simple blog posts just to contextualise and explain what we wanted to achieve, but through the serendipity of our approach, the blog has become an open-ended empirical discourse, a complex multimedia web through which a reader can participate in our shared experience. It is the technologies underpinning it that power this potential, the mechanisms and tools that IIIF enables, the connections to other works and nodes that the data exposes. To expand on that idea of democratising participation, projects like this mean that participation is a pedagogical experience for everyone involved. By collectively understanding the parallels, we can apply our knowledge and experience of the physical world to digital technologies, giving them a richer, more human, more interesting part in our lives. Having received additional funding, a second phase of the project is currently underway. This funding from Research England's Enhancing Research Culture Fund has meant that we have been able to undertake an additional 7 walks in which we have sought to engage underrepresented groups in the research process. This has involved working with local school children and a focus group of blind and partially sighted people, as well as charities that work with black and ethnic minority women, refugees, asylum seekers and migrants, and those whose lives have been affected by stroke. It has also enabled us to increase collaboration with additional partners in the sector, including the National Trust, local county councils and other museums. We have been able to incorporate elements of creative writing, and we have also been able to explore additional technologies such as 3D modelling and 3D printing, and will be convening a workshop that will bring together as many of those involved in the project to date as possible to explore its success and future direction. We are capturing some amazing examples of broadening access, enriching experiences and facilitating connections. These new engagements offer new opinions, new ways of thinking, and incorporate new communities. I keep returning to the phrase, a work of art is never finished, merely abandoned, and this project provides hope that the digital landscape is one that allows things to keep living. The phenomenological combination of taking the digital for a walk shows what a powerful convening tool for networking and collaboration building this type of activity can be. More importantly, it also shows that if we try, it can serve as a levelling agent, one in which humanity can find ways to connect through finding common ground and hopefully experiencing the joy in that. We hope you'll continue to follow our project with interest. Thank you very much.